Ladies and gentlemen. Good evening. Good to see you again this week. We'll begin as we generally do with an opening treatment from the magnificent book, Peace, Joy, and Love by Dr. William Taliber. Bless him. I think he's still writing affirmations wherever he is right now. I started every church meeting with that for over 30 years. This one is called I Make the Right Choices. And by the way, I don't mark them when I use them for this class. So every once in a while, I just put my hand in there and flip it, and whatever it opens to, that's what we do. So it might be occasions it'll be duplicated because that's the way it works. I make the right choices. Each moment of my life, I'm confronted by multiples of choices. God has given me the absolute freedom to choose what I may, and then provides me with the wish I have chosen. The power of my mind to choose is the absolute power of my life. At this moment, I make valid choices. I choose to love rather than to hate, to laugh rather than cry, to create rather than to destroy, to heal rather than to wound, to care rather than ignore. I choose God and life rather than ignorance and decay. I choose to express the truth of my being, which is God. I choose to align myself with the mind of God made manifest through me, in me, and as me. I consciously make these choices. I free the potential within me to express at all times. I become more alive and express more of the infinite intelligence. I am evolving toward a more complete union with and the expression of God. I have chosen wisely, for I have chosen life. I have chosen God, and so it is. All right, last week I mentioned Meister Eckhart. And I told you what happened with Meister Eckhart. He had the dirtiest possible job in the Abbey, and he'd been doing it for years and never complaining. And the abbot, who was the head of the Abbey, came down one day and said to him, Meister Eckhart, you've been doing this job for multiples of years. It's the dirtiest, probably filthiest job in the whole monastery. That will happen occasionally. I had dialysis today. And you never complain. Why do you keep doing this? And he said, very simply, I'm practicing the presence of God. Well, rather strangely, this week I ran into another person who I deeply believe is also practicing the presence of God. The gentleman's name is Wilson. I met Wilson here in Publix, which is our giant grocery store, maybe 14, 15 years ago. And just by going, he was in the appetizer department, we got to know each other well. Whenever I'd come in, he'd come around the counter. We would talk to each other, hug each other, and we found out we had great feelings for each other in a very proper way. But then they moved him, and they moved him to another Publix, which is further away from where ours is, but it's worth traveling just to see Wilson. And Wilson was working in the meat department there and doing his normal, fantastic, great job, always pleasant, always smiling, always greeting me, and vice versa, some conversation and up to dating. And the other day I went there and I looked around and I said, where's Wilson? And the young man behind the counter said, well, Wilson had personal business today. He couldn't make it. I said, well, that's too bad, because the one reason I have been coming to this Publix for years is because of the food, but mostly because of Wilson. He's a special, special person in my life, and it ain't the same without him being here. And that young man said, well, there are 7 of us back here, and we all agree with you. The day we got Wilson from the appetizer department into our department, we were all blessed. He is an unbelievable human being, always pleasant, joking around, doing his job perfectly. The customers just love him. His boss loves him. In fact, the boss wanted to promote him twice and he refused it because he said he prefers doing what he's doing right now. So there you have it, friends. That is an example in my mind, in my heart, of practicing the presence of God. So the question comes down in your life. Are you practicing the presence of God? Are you happy with your job? If you're unhappy with it, are you still doing it and doing it as well as you're supposed to do it because you're there right now because that's the only way you have to practice the presence of God. Look into your relationships, particularly your family, anyone that you are judging or withholding your love and your concern for, then you're not practicing the presence of God because we have told love is everything. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Are you practicing the presence of God? Because most of what we are teaching here is about our connections to the universal source, which we choose to call God. Many names for that particular energy. And if we're unhappy all the time and we're not being kind and we're not loving, and we just finished a prayer that said, are we filled with this and filled with that? Have we selected this? Have we selected that? Where are you in your presentation of your day? And do you do at night what I suggested at one point? Check your day out. Say thank you for all the good that you received. And you know how I do that. Everything to me is good. Put the key in the door, I got a home. Put the key in the car, I have transportation. Check my bank account, I have enough not to be concerned. Still trying to get the first million, but more than enough right now to live a decent life. So all of those questions are to go and see how much you're applying the spiritual laws and principles we suggested and doing the work that was suggested in the first 6 chapters of the Mystic Path to Cosmic Power. Because without using it and without practicing it, you are obviously not doing the best you can by being the God within you, by being the God without. This chapter tonight, which is chapter 7 in the book, is called How to Stop Heartache and Suffering. And he starts, whenever you suffer from anything whatsoever, always remember that it could have been avoided. Simply remember that had you understood the mystic path and the powerful spiritual laws more fully, you would not have felt that pain. This helps you to work with yourself today so that tomorrow will be serene and peaceful. What exactly is suffering? Our pains are caused by our wrong viewpoints toward things. The false self throws up an imaginary picture of how it insists things should be. And every time this should be clashes with what actually happens, that's when we accept pain. The problem is not what actually happens, but our demand that something should happen. It says, don't take my word for this, experiment for yourself. Pain appears whenever a desire for a particular happening clashes with that which actually happens. A large part of that is ego gratification. We have this very high personal idea of ourselves. And when people don't live up to accepting that amazing human being that we are, then we start feeling very uncomfortable and we start looking around and asking ourselves, what do I have to do to make these individuals or this boss or this department appreciate more how incredible I am? And I speak from experience. That was me for many, many, many years. Cost me a lot of grief. But all of it, all this pain is an illusion because there's absolutely no reason for it. Because if you're doing what you should be doing and doing it well, you are practicing the presence of God. Let's say the mind runs an imaginative film about some foolishness in our past. Your stream of thought causes painful guilt and shame. So because we create that, we suffer the anguish that goes with it. But the feeling is false because it's based on mere thought about something that's not happening now, and which something that has nothing to do with us right now. It is us creating the situation, us being unpleased with the result, and therefore we find ourselves painful, frequently deeply depressed. There was a famous emperor, and that book is in the hands of Marcus Aurelius. He said, if you want a good life, just simply erase the imagination. If you want a good life, arrest and eliminate the imagination. Marcus Aurelius is Marcus, second name Aurelius. Further says, if we awaken ourselves long enough to erase the imagination film and to search for the pain caused by it, what happens? Magic. Pain disappears. I had a class many years ago, and I was trying to demonstrate that or create some kind of environment that people could appreciate how much of it is all of our own doing. And I said, we're living in New York, which we were at the time, and you have a relative out in California who you deeply love and care for, who has a dog which is 95% of her life. She just simply adores the dog. The dog is so much of her life. Without you knowing it, the dog dies. And that relative, that beautiful, let's call her an aunt, that aunt is really, really lost. She's in anguish over the loss, as many of us are when somebody we deeply love dies. You know nothing about it, so you're not in anguish. It doesn't bother you. Because you don't know. But then she calls up that day and she says to you, Erwin, guess what happened today? I'm so sad. I'm so sorrowful. I'm so messed up. My little Charlie died and I don't know what I'm going to do without him. And you do the proper thing. You say, I'm so sorry for your loss. But perhaps you'd be fortunate enough if you go to ASPCA, you can find another beautiful animal that will begin to put itself into your life, and you'll have a chance to cherish it as much as you did Charlie. And I hang up the phone and I start crying. And I'm weeping. But now I have to be honest and ask myself, what am I crying for? Charlie was dead 6 days ago and I didn't cry. Why didn't I? I didn't know. But now I know, so why am I crying 6 days after the fact? Well, because I know too that my aunt is having a very difficult time, so I'm crying for her too. But here we go now. We didn't cry when it happened because we didn't know it. So what makes us cry now that we do know it? Because then we go into empathy and feeling of loss and everything else. And that brings up the mood and the imagination. You see the picture and we start crying. He says in the book here, don't make this mistake. Witness the passage of mental and emotional grief, but instead of holding it, watch it pass right through you. Don't resist what you see, but don't identify with it. That is, do not take the painful feeling as part of the essential you. You are someone entirely different. Separate the pain from the person you call I. This is very challenging practice at first, but it produces amazing results because you see, anything that we don't attach to the I, we don't own it. And if we don't own it, we don't need to emotionally act upon it. But we do need to look at it and ask ourselves, what does this mean to me? Why is this in my life? And what can I choose to do about separating myself from the emotional aspect of it? We have to see our negative emotions as self-induced suffering, for those are exactly what they are. All negative feelings are just pointless pain. That will aid you to understand and to remove it. Once you realize it cannot hurt you, it is not real, it is not the I of you. And that's how you eliminate the suffering that goes along with it. People say to me, I'm trying to liberate myself, yet nothing happens. In spite of all of my efforts, I remain the same way I am. Why is that? If you've ever asked this question, don't be concerned. It merely means that you, the seeker, are still trying to grasp a higher truth with the lower mind. Cannot be done. See, we must recall we are practicing the presence of God. Awareness that we're not getting anywhere, listen to this awareness that we're not making progress. That is actual progress. It means that at last we've seen through our pretensions of progress and we're beginning to start to do the real thing. That's why it's so significant, so important that we do that review of our day each and every night, because that's the one way we can begin to understand and anticipate why we act the way we do. It also helps us understand why we habitually do things when it's not necessary. All habit is as a result of initial thought that became very comfortable, and now we continue to do it because we're secure in those comforts, until a message comes up and they tell you about doing this habit can go and reduce your life by 23 years. It can go and give you a stroke. It can give you a heart attack. And even though you know it's a lousy habit, let's pick one that I don't do anymore, which I did for about 40 years, smoking. How many ads do you see on TV every single day telling you if you need help, call the smoking hotline? And then they show you people who had continued to smoke and the horrible pain and suffering they're going through as a result of it. In fact, they even said, and one of them, Mrs. So-and-so, who spoke to you, died from the results of smoking. That is the way most of us protect the things that we decided are for our good, even though we know they're not. So here's some extra highlights along the way. Number one, you are a co-creator with the creator that gave you life today. So technically, you are a mini God. So that nothing is too difficult for you to accomplish if you begin to understand that acclamations are your results and your efforts to go and get yourself to the higher levels of understanding that that which you are seeking and looking for is looking for you. It takes time, it takes practice. That's why we open every session with one of the acclamations and affirmations. Number two, the truth will not start the walk for you, but it'll match every step you take toward with a step towards you. You have to begin to do the work. Remember, I didn't start with it today, but I'll start with it now. I am the only person I will have a relationship with all my life, and therefore I choose. Question mark. That means every individual choice you made throughout your entire life put you in that seat where you are right now, listening to me and allowing me to talk to you. It would never have happened if you didn't make those choices. So how can we then go and say, I made so many bad choices, so many mistakes? You didn't. You did what you knew from the best that you had at the time you did it. And you responded to whatever situation occurred, but you chose to label it because you didn't like the result as a mistake. They are opportunities to make life choices to enhance and to lift us up to the highest possible levels we can. Accept them. Change is the highest single aspect of life, where everything changes. If you need to do it again, just look at nature. Spring, fall, winter, spring, back and forth. drop it off, let it hibernate, let it grow, let the buds come on, let them die, let the leaves come on, let them die. Nature doesn't worry about that. Nature knows exactly what it has to do and exactly when to do it. If you haven't enjoyed the last hour, you wasted it. How can I say that? I can say that because it says it in the book. But I can also say that each of us has 24 hours a day. If you're a person who can sleep well, you sleep 6 to 8 hours. If not, you might sleep 4. But the hours that you're not sleeping, which are the dream state, which are powerful hours, but those particular hours, most of us don't believe anything good's happening. So when we wake up, we start acting our lives out and we make choices. But remember, if we are practicing the presence of God and we're one with God, then there's a greater mind that works and thinks for you if you allow it by opening your heart and your mind. The truth is, suffering and loss and heartache are not enemies, but they're requesting you to make some corrections, just like a temperature gauge in a hot room. The other part is, and here's where I really damaged a large part of my life, because I was forever pushing, poking, prodding, trying to get recognized far above and beyond what would be normal time. Don't work so hard at living your life. Just let it be lived. You are right now, at this precise moment, in the exact place you should be. The question still comes back to it. What will you do with the time exactly where you are? That's what this whole topic is all about. We've been teaching about it. Awareness, mental awareness for weeks now. The greater the crisis, the greater the opportunity for you to go and demonstrate clearly that you understand that you are a co-creator. And that crisis that is presented to you, the answer is already present, but we must open our hearts and our minds, become silent and listen, and the result will come because it must. It's part of spiritual law. Awareness of all pretense destroys it, and away fall all the weariness and guilt that goes along with the fake pretense. Last week, I believe, Dale, it was you that mentioned Krishnamurti. Well, here's a nice statement from him, if I'm correct in my assumption. Awareness is observation without condemnation. Awareness brings understanding because there is no condemnation or identification, but silent observation. If I truly want to understand something, I must observe. I must not criticize. I must not condemn. I must not pursue it as pleasure or avoid it as non-pleasure. There must merely be silent observation of a fact. There is no end in view, but awareness of everything as it arises. There it is again. I believe the Buddhists have a great saying. They say, attach yourself to absolutely nothing, and then there is no suffering, and there is just life living life. And we have indicated in this teaching, and I've mentioned many times, there's no limitation to how many thank yous you can say in a day if you become aware that everything that comes into your life on that day is a result of choices you have made, will continue to make on that day. And as a result, you should be thankful for them, pro or con. The ones that are not too good are the ones that are advising you to get away from the pretense of you knowing everything and asking you, what can you change now to make them a thank you? What change must I make on those things that I felt that I didn't do as well today as I could, change them to thank yous? Allow them to become a thank you that you can observe now and you understand what's happening and you can change it because you're observing it. Once again, what's suffering? It's a face-to-face encounter with something that the false self doesn't want to face. It is resistance against the truth of reality. We resist the very truth that could liberate us because we don't want to recognize it either. And we're under the delusion of falsehood is true. But here I can tell you, and I underlined this in a different color of ink. Suffering of itself teaches absolutely nothing. Suffering has no power over anyone unless you permit it to do so. Perceive this, perceive it, and you win every time. Whether the assault comes as loneliness, frustration, despair, whatever it is, do not think of suffering as something hateful or something to escape. Learn to use it wisely. For what purpose? To assist you and dissolve the suffering. Most of our suffering and the things that we label as our problems are life situations that have come in front of us, and we have that thing of fear. What might happen if we do this, we do that, we do that? So we postpone. The longer you postpone something that is asking you to see it and change it, the heavier it becomes. And if it becomes bad enough, then it can even lead to lifetime despair. That's why today we have a very bad problem in this country. Teenagers committing suicide regularly because they have allowed someone other than themselves to tell them about themselves, and they just don't recognize their greatness. When we reach a certain level of insight, it takes an entirely different view of all unhappiness. It no longer resists, nor do we resent it. We understand its value. We see that a shock or crisis is a message telling us that in some way we are living out of harmony with our own original and beautiful true nature. Now, does that sound like this is a mistake? No, this is a life lesson. That's why for years, long before everybody started using the term life lessons, I used them because every Sunday I tried to come and bring something in that occurred during the week, and I made a life lesson out of it. Well, what is the mystical attitude to those who refuse to receive the very truth that could set them free? It's simple. He says to the very silently, when the pain becomes unbearable, when you're willing to give up the false self, come back and perhaps we can talk it over. Now, the other kind of suffering is worry. Anybody want to think about the definition of worry? Because it's so heavy on so many people's lives, particularly right now where it seems the entire world is upside down. Got wars again ready to go. We got climate change. We got the economic situation that will definitely resolve itself at some point because they always have. Worst one I ever read about was 1929. My father and mother lived through that one, and we've had many ups and downs before. But what is worry? Concern about something that hasn't even happened. Think about it. Worry is concern about something that hasn't even happened. Whatever that is, it doesn't exist because it hasn't happened. So what do I gain by worrying about it? I don't worry about anything. I'm concerned. I have neuropathy. It hurts like hell. But I told you I could have lost both legs. So when I put my feet on the floor in the morning, I say, thank you. Pain and all, I say, thank you. Because I still have my legs. Do I worry about it? No, but I am concerned about it because it's part of my responsibility to choose whatever I can to lessen the situation. Then I have peripheral arterial disease, 40% in the left leg, 30% in the right leg. Am I worried about it? No, but what I did do about it is I got the top surgeon I could go and locate, a vascular specialist. He and his father are the two highest in all of Florida. And I went to them and said, I present you with this. And I ask only one thing of you. When and if something really shuts down, as it did for me when I was 50 years old, my entire left leg was literally gone by the time I got to the hospital. I wanted to see a doctor. The guy wanted me to fill out papers. And as I was talking to him, and I think I shared this with you, the elevator opened up. 6 men came walking out. One of them heard me yelling, came over, said, "What's going on, son?" I showed him my leg, and he said to the kid, "Let the wife fill out the papers. We're taking him upstairs." Turns out those were 6 vascular doctors that had been there for a symposium on that exact particular condition that I had right now at that moment. And despite all my studying, I can't at the moment remember which artery it was, but it's behind the knee and exploded. He told me as we went up, "I'm concerned." And I said, "Look, doc, I don't," and I'm going to use this word now because it's exactly as I said it then, "I don't give a shit about that. Do the best you can. Save my life if humanly possible. I'm in your hands." When I came out, he said, "Surgery's a success, but here's what could happen. You keep the leg. If in 48 hours the pulses don't get stronger, you may still lose the leg." So there you are. I said, "You did the job. I did my job. I'm going to let it alone. Let it be what it will be." By the way, I still have the leg and have had it, and I'm now 85. What about this type of pain we call worry? Well, it's totally unnecessary. This is not a beautiful dream, it's a fact. When you reach a certain height of awareness, you don't worry about anything. And I mean, you do not worry about anything. All worry, and there are no exceptions, spring from false notions about situations, including ourselves. It is utter nonsense that we have to be popular, be wise, be excited, be happy all the time. We need to be only one thing: mature, decent, and happy, loving human beings. You no longer take anxious thought for tomorrow because tomorrow is not here. It is you and your anxiousness that present it into the present time. The same with the past. The past is past. The only way it can exist is for you to bring it into the present. That's why I say pasting and futuring are highly destructive emotions because they don't exist. They're of your own mind, your creation, your imagination. Once you understand there's no need to be anxious for any thought of tomorrow, you begin to be a little carefree, cheery. You won't know or care where your good is going to come from. And for advanced students, add this: not only will you neither know or care where your good comes from, but you won't care whether it comes or not, because you know you already have it. How do I know that? How dare I say that? I woke up alive this morning. I was given a gift, the gift of God. That makes it pretty clear for me every day. I got it all. I don't need to worry. I don't need to be concerned. Seriously, when a life situation occurs, I should recognize it because, as we said, there are opportunities for growth, spiritual growth, mental growth, physical growth. Honor change. Don't fight change. Honor it, accept it, look forward to it. Get up in the morning and say, "What incredible new adventure will I have in this beautiful, magnificent day?" Get up and say what I say every day, because I need to say it every day. If I didn't live it for years, no person, place, or thing shall disturb me today. This is a perfect, wonderful day, period, or anything similar to that. All heartache, all suffering is simply caused by our own wrong viewpoints. Stop running imaginative, negative films. Awareness means simply understanding ourselves, and we must work sincerely at self-awareness because that is our life. Okay, let's look at another thing. He says, this chapter is 8, mysteries that can change your life. Time while I flip a page. Okay, well, here's what he starts with. For events to be different, you must be different. Your inward nature must be transformed and made new. A new nature which calls for persistent self-work, which will set new causes into motion, and then everything will be different. The mystic path leads to total transformation of our reactions towards life. How amazing it really is. You start seeing everything in a different life. We delightfully perceive that we can clearly choose to change from a victim to a victor. We can stop running so frantically through our day, for we understand that we really did not want to race so breathlessly. We merely did not know what else to do, but now you know. Here's a technique that can help you change. Happiness follows the sincere effort of self-discovery. You cannot possibly be happy if you're a stranger to yourself. Self-understanding is the door to quietude. And he says, let's see how it goes in other areas. Change yourself rather than working to change others. Oh, my friends. After 25 to 30 years of the church, and out of that, probably 20 years, heavy counseling of other human beings, we did classes on it. Be darned if I can remember the name of the class now, but it was basically attitude changing. You cannot change others. Did you hear it? You cannot change others. Because you're the only person that you'll be with your entire life if you choose. That's the one you can change. But you cannot change others. I gave them a questionnaire each time they came into the class to go and get a sense and a feel of what was bothering and troubling them and what we would discuss in the 8 weeks of class. And I said, I know I have a lot of really good, solid suggestions because I've been in the teaching for a long time. But I began to realize from prior classes that just suggesting something useful that could truly change their life, by my opinion, remember, see, that's the problem, why you can't change them. What you say is your opinion. They haven't lived your life. They don't have your opinion. And then they look at it and they don't care, and nor do they want to have your opinion. You will not change their life. No matter what I've been saying for the last 16, 17 weeks, nothing will change in your life unless you are willing to change it. I can't do it. So don't spend so much time working to change others. Spend a lot of time working to change yourself. Because by change your thinking, you change your life. Time to put that inner man in control of the outer guy. Most of your life, you've been accepting and taking all kinds of wisdom externally to bring you pretty much to the place where you are right now. Maybe over the last 17 weeks, by learning that you were using spiritual law, but you were using it in a negative form rather than an instructive form which could raise you up. That might change now, because now you're beginning to trust the inner voice more than the outer voice, particularly if you continue to do meditation and affirmations. Spend the rest of the night saying thank you for many things that have occurred during the day. Look the day over, see how you can change it instead of labels. Get rid of the damn labels, please. Labels, labels, labels. They are destructive. Label nothing. Look at it as a life experience and then ask yourself, do I know what I can do? If you're having difficulty, go to bed and ask for help. Just simply say, I know that at this time that I am dreaming the dreams of him who sent me. Go to sleep on that and see what happens. Be loving, and you will be loved. You see, loving people cannot see other people who don't. It's beyond their comprehension. If you love them, and we have been suggested unconditionally, which I know most humans cannot do, and I certainly couldn't. That's why I ended up divorced the first time. It's up to you. You be the loving person. It doesn't say like everybody. Let's get that clear too. Loving and liking are widely diversified. Loving means you love them because you recognize them. They are fellow humans practicing the presence of God, and the only way they know how to. Now, if it happens you don't like them, you have choices. One of them is to avoid them. And if they are the type who come in your face and get very argumentative, listen to them. Don't ever interrupt somebody who's angry. Very dangerous situation these days, too many guns around. Listen to them very carefully and say, I'm very sorry you feel like that. It was no way my intention to go and cause you any disturbance. Calm them down, and if you can, say, I'm sorry now, I have to go. I had a chore to complete. Would you mind if I leave now? And then try to leave. Attend to the reason why you feel hurt, but not to the people who you think hurt you. They can't hurt you unless you allow them to be hurt. If you know who you are. And if somebody says you're stupid, you're ignorant, you're a moron, and I can't stand you, why would you be hurt by that? They don't know you. They think they know you, that's fine. But you know you're not stupid, ignorant, and dumb. You have the power of God in you. You woke up this morning with the infinite source of knowledge. How could you be dumb and stupid? So just stand there and accept it. Why would you allow anything like that to hurt you? Place thinking before speaking. Voila. The other thing is, if you see two people in violent anger with each other, don't begin to interrupt them. I'm getting a picture of someone here and I don't know who it is, but good evening, whoever you are. Be a real person, understand yourself, and try to know others. That's the most important part. Try to know others. The truth is you never will. I'm married now to Phyllis for 41, 42 years coming up. And we both recognize that neither one of us knows as much about each other as perhaps we'd like to believe we do. And how do we know that? Because we still disagree on certain elements and certain things. So instead of getting angry and mad and roaring and ranting, we try to go and bring the issue up, look at it, and reach a midpoint where we can resolve it. You will never know another person, where all of us hide the things we don't want knowing. So understand yourself and try to know others by listening, 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 listening. Place small efforts before great determinations. Look, the little things are what makes life so very important. They are also the things that can destroy. It's a song, little things mean a lot. You accumulate a lot of negative little things and you now have yourself a life-threatening situation, a relationship threatened. Do not practice merely to have something to do. Just set the goal to be a new self. He felt in this chapter that it was important that you know how to be loving. Take the principles governing love between man and women. The ability to give love and to receive it are equal. A man can offer a woman genuine love, but unless she's on the same level, she cannot receive it, nor can she reciprocate. We cannot receive anything above our own level, any more than we can stand on the ground and reach a peach at the very top of a tree. There's no point whatever, for unloving people to search for people to love them. It'll be endless frustration. In the first place, we wouldn't recognize a generally loving person even if we met one. Secondly, a loving man and woman would wisely see that she and the man have nothing in common. A love relationship between two people of widely separated psychic levels is impossible because there is no attraction between them. Like attracts like. Love can only be attracted by and returned by loving principles. Here he says, ooh, I think I'm running over. Okay, I'm going to end it with this. 4 golden keys. The sincere desire for inner change is self-transformation, and it starts the moment we wish to be different. Contact workable principles. Look for the source of genuine help. That's internal. That's the God, you know. But you can look at a book or a teacher or your own inner light. Most of all, be honest with yourself. Face the facts about ourselves, even if it's disturbing. You have to do it in order to change your thinking and change your life. And persistence. With endurance, happiness comes gradually but definitely, like a blinking light in the distance that begins to glow permanently. I do believe I am now at a point where I am slightly out of time. I only had a few other things I would have covered, but I'll bring them in ahead of next week's 2 chapters. Michael, that's over and out, folks.